Hello everyone, I'm Pinji Chen from Tsinghua University. Today I'm very delighted to present our research, cross-origin web attacks via HTTP2 server push and signed HTTP exchange. This work is also contributed by Jianjun, Qi, Mingming, and Haixin. So today, our talk roadmap will cover 3 aspects, and each aspect will address a quick question. In the first question, we will introduce what is the same origin policy and what has been changed in today's origin definition. Second, we will introduce what novel threats or attacks would this change bring to the web. And also in this section, we will present our CrossPUSH and CrossSXG attack. At last, we will address the real-world practicality of these attacks, highlighting some practical attack techniques, and also introduce a real-world case that we found. Okay, let's start with the same origin policy. I believe that all of the audience here are familiar with the same origin policy. We all know that the same origin policy is a cornerstone of web security, which is designed to safeguard user data against cross-origin attacks. But what I want to emphasize here is that the origin in same origin policy is URI-based, which means that 2 resources are considered to have the same origin only if their scheme, host, and port URI tuple are the same. However, we found that this is not the only definition of origin. So, do you know other definition of origin? One day, when I read some RFC specifications to learn HTTP2, I discovered that recent advancement in the HTTP protocol undermined the same origin policy, broadening the origin to ICN-based. Specifically, HTTP2 and HTTP3 consider any hosts listed in the SubjectAlternativeName of the certificate are same origin. For example, this is a wildcard certificate of Google.com. It's shared with many hosts like Android.com, YouTube.com, and also some domains that we are not familiar with. But in HTTP2 and HTTP3, all of them are considered as the same origin. So this motivates me to further investigate the situation of multi-domain certificates. Actually, such multi-domain shared certificate is a common practice. Prior research published at the CCS conference has shown that 96% of certificates contain multiple domains in their SN list. And notably, 3.2% include domains belonging to different organizations. This implies that an ICN-based origin may contain different entities. So ICN-based origin is more permissive than URI-based origin. As a result, it's quite natural to ask, what novel threat would this more permissive origin bring to the web? Actually, this is our work, the CrossPUSH and CrossSXG attack. Well, just like their name, these cross-origin web attacks are based on 2 features, HTTP2 server push and signed HTTP exchange. These 2 features are 2 server delivery mechanisms designed to improve web performance. Actually, you don't need to know their details, or you can just learn it later. But in this talk, you need to remember their characteristics. First, in their specification, they both comply with the ICN-based origin. Second, server push and SSG can indicate, or in another word, spoof other origins in the shared certificate. For instance, via the authority pseudo header and the request URL signature header. So we summarize, combine these 2 characteristics, attackers can push or provide access to other origins listed in the ICN list, even if those origins are held by other organizations. And based on these findings, we propose 2 novel attack vectors, CrossPUSH and CrossSXG. An overview of these attacks is illustrated in the figure. At first, we assume that the attacker can acquire a certificate that is shared between the victim's website and the attacker's website, just like the figure show. Keep in mind that shared certificates are the foundation of all of our attack. We can only launch the attack if we get a certificate that includes the victim's domain in its SAN, because that's what allows us to take advantage of the relaxed SAN-based origin. So at the start of the attack, the attacker will lure the victim into clicking a malicious link. When the victim visits the attacker's website, the attacker will use server push or SSG to deliver a malicious script and set its origin to the victim's website. Due to the relaxation of origin that we previously introduced, they are SAN-based, so the browser will accept malicious cross-origin resources as same origin and execute them when loading the victim's website. Notably, our attacks introduce new security implications. In prior work, attackers who obtained a certificate typically could only launch man-in-the-middle attacks. In contrast, our attacks enable off-path attackers to launch practical web attacks using a shared certificate. This consequently leads to cross-site scripting, cookie manipulation, and other exploitations. Next, we will introduce some exploitation details of these attacks. Since the push and SSG are both like a HTTP response, which contain HTTP header and the HTTP body. So first, we can leverage HTTP body to launch cross-site scripting by inserting some malicious script into HTTP body, just like the figure show. So surprisingly, as we control the whole HTTP response, this cross-site scripting are universal. That means whether the target website has vulnerabilities, is offline, or no longer exists, our attack still works. Also, security policies like content security policy cannot prevent such attack because attackers will not set CSP header in the malicious response. And here we credit Daddy and Asing for their blog to introduce this exploitation. Their explanation and implementation details inspires me a lot in my research. To better demonstrate the attack effect, we record a demo video. So let's see it. You can see that one website is controlled by an attacker, another is the victim website. So when a user requests the attacker's website, the attacker can push the alert cookie script and set a redirection. Then browser executes the malicious script in the context of victim website. Besides HTTP body, we can also use HTTP header to launch attacks, such as use set cookie header to manipulate others' cookie. In this case, we can set the victim's cookie on the target website to an arbitrary value, for example, the attacker's own cookie, thus causing a session fixation attack. Another case, we can use the strict transport security header to bypass HSTS. This can be done by setting the HSTS max age to 0, effectively removing the HSTS protection. And this is a demo demonstration of set arbitrary cookie. So first, we set a normal cookie, a test cookie. Second, we launch our attacks. So you can see the cookie of victim website is changed to you are hacked. Moreover, we can also leverage HTTP body and HTTP header together to launch malicious file downloads. We'll use content disposition header to control the HTTP body to be treated as an attachment, then put malicious binary content into the body. Here's the demo. So first, attacker can push a malicious file to victim website. Then when you request normal website again, browser accepts the cross-origin resource and the malicious file is successfully downloaded. And if the victim trusts this file, his computer may be hacked, just like set Kali to run this file. So you are hacked. OK, up till now, our attacks seem to be great. But I know that someone may ask, are these attacks practical in the real world? In the next part, we will discuss the techniques to make our attack practical. We will address the following three questions. First, how to acquire the shared certificate as an attack condition. Second, how to extend attack duration. And third, how to bypass potential countermeasures, such as the victim revoking the shared certificate. First, acquire a shared certificate is the primary prerequisite for executing our attack. Though some accidental flows in HTTP, DNS, and email may help attackers to acquire an illegal certificate, but our focus is the inherent vulnerabilities in the certificate ecosystem. We discovered that there are no mechanisms to ensure that the certificate owner and the domain owner remain aligned. Therefore, we propose two methods to create attack conditions: domain resealing and domain takeover. In terms of domain resealing, attackers can buy numerous domains and issue a multi-domain certificate for them, and then resell part of the included domains to victims while retaining the shared certificate. Then the attacker easily creates the attack condition because the attacker obtained the certificate, but the domains are sold to others. In terms of domain takeover, it occurs when domain names point to deprovisioned VPS IPs and registered CDN endpoint or just expired domain names. Since these targets are publicly available, an attacker can register these abandoned services, reconfigure their DNS records to point to attacker-controlled infrastructure, and issue the certificate via HTTP mode. Finally, the attacker can use this method to obtain a shared certificate that includes the hijacked domains. Another critical factor influencing attack practicality is the attack duration. We all know that traditional domain takeover attacks will be invalid after the downloaded DNS record is removed by the victims. In contrast, our attack is still valid after the downloaded DNS record is removed until the certificate expires, which typically takes 398 days. However, our findings reveal that a user-friendly mechanism known as domain validation reuse can potentially extend the attack duration to 796 days. This mechanism allows a certificate applicant who has previously passed domain ownership validation to skip the revalidation when applying for a new certificate within a specific time frame. And this time frame can last up to 398 days. So the attacker can reapply a new certificate on the last day just before certificate expiration, extending the attack duration from 398 days to a maximum of 796 days. So our attack is still valid for more than 2 years, even after downloading DNS record is removed. Someone may find that certificate is very crucial in our attacks. So maybe a potential countermeasure against our attack is to detect unauthorized certificates via CT logs and just revoke them. So do attackers have methods to bypass these countermeasures? The answer is yes. We introduce a strategy that makes an unauthorized certificate irrevocable. As shown in Let's Encrypt's documentation, to revoke a certificate, one of the following two conditions must be met. The issuer should pass domain ownership validation for all domains included in the certificate, or possess the private key of the certificate. However, consider what happens if an attacker issues a shared certificate that includes both the attacker's domain and the victim's domain, just like the illustration on the left. Unfortunately, the victim does not meet either revocation condition. Such shared certificates are irrevocable by victims. We also conducted an experiment on Zero SSL to report an illegitimate certificate shared with our domains and the official problem reporting platform, but received no reply. To evaluate the impact of our attack in the real world, we conducted a large-scale measurement. On the client side, we measure which browser accepts server push and SSG. On the server side, we measure which websites allow attackers to acquire a shared certificate. If both conditions are met, it may enable an attacker to launch our attacks. Our client-side test target includes top-used browsers on SateCounter, default browsers on leading mobiles, and celebrated applications on the App Store. For server-side, we measure previously discussed reselling domains and dangling domains in Tranquil top 1 million domains. In addition, we measure the existing third-sharing domains in Tranquil top 1,000. To evaluate browsers' behavior, considering the wide variety of browsers used in our daily lives, we cannot manually collect all of them. So we developed an automatic measurement system called PS Checker. The mechanism of this system is quite simple. We just use a high-traffic website under our control to direct traffic to a feature measurement server via an iframe. This server then uses server push and SSG to cross-origin push script. Finally, by checking whether the script is executed, we can determine whether the browser supports server push and SSG. After running PS Checker for months, measurement results show that vulnerable browsers are widespread, where the latest version of 11 top-used browsers and 5 default mobile browsers are vulnerable to at least one of our attacks. Meanwhile, we surprisingly found that some celebrated applications used built-in browsers based on the mobile OS web view component, which inherited the same vulnerabilities as web views. This significantly extends the attack surface from browsers to third-party applications. If you want to know more about the details, please refer to our white paper and the NDSS conference paper. To measure the impact on server-side websites, we first address reselling domains, which is one of the attacker's potential methods for obtaining a shared certificate we previously discussed. We use Whois history data to identify domains that have been resold to different owners. For the other method, dangling domains, we utilize a state-of-the-art tool, Hosting Checker, which is published at the Sigmetrics conference to detect such vulnerable domains. Finally, we consider third-sharing domains. Although these domains do not allow attackers to directly obtain a shared certificate, they reveal a form of security dependency. That is, if any of these domains are compromised, the top-ranked domains sharing the certificate with them may become vulnerable to our attacks. Our measurement methodology is as follows. We first scrap all domain names listed in the ICN of certificate from the top 1,000 website to identify their related domains. We then extract subdomains of these related domains from HTTP responses, CT logs, and passive DNS data. Finally, we check whether these associated domains share certificate with the top 1,000 website. Evaluation results show that numerous websites are affected. Some cases even affect notable websites. For instance, ftstatic.com, which ranks 3,895, was once resold from an Australian food company to an American advertising agency, and could potentially be exploited by the original domain owner. A subdomain of windowsupdate.com from Microsoft is dangling, which can be registered by any attackers. Moreover, many top-ranked domains share certificates with low-ranked domains. These low-ranked domains are even from different organizations that have the potential to launch our attack to the top 1,000 website. And this situation is confirmed by Baidu.com. Of course, I know that talk is cheap, so in the next part, I will show a real-world case that we found in Microsoft. According to the measurement, we found that the CNAME record of a Microsoft domain, which is related to Windows Update, was pointing to an unregistered domain. Attacker can just buy and register this qtlcdnx.com, then configure the DNS-A record to point to an attacker service IP address. As a result, domain ownership can be verified, and the attacker can issue a shared certificate, then launch our attacks. And this is the certificate I previously obtained that shared with Microsoft domain. Of course, the vulnerability has been reported, so the certificate has been revoked by us, and Microsoft has already fixed this issue. We recorded a video of launching cross-site scripting on Microsoft domain in the past. Let's see it. So after obtaining a shared certificate through domain takeover, we set up an HTTP2 attack server. We then simulated a victim clicking a malicious link. Our attack-controlled server pushed an alert domain script to Microsoft website and triggered a redirect. Similar to the previous cross-site scripting demo, we successfully executed the alert domain script on the Microsoft domain. Finally, let's discuss how to mitigate our attacks. We proposed the following countermeasures. For browser vendors, they should enforce consistent authority checks in browsers to mitigate cross-push, and enforce single domain certificate to prevent cross-SXG. For certificate authorities, we suggest they provide a mechanism allowing domain owners to remove their domains from issued shared certificates. For users, we advise them to inspect certificate status in domain registration to detect unauthorized shared certificates. So as you can see, our attack involves multiple parties: browsers, certificate authorities, domain name systems. Therefore, addressing this security issue requires collaborative efforts from all stakeholders. We also responsibly disclose our findings to affected vendors. 7 vendors confirmed the vulnerability, and 5 vendors have fixed this issue, including Huawei, Baidu, Microsoft, etc. We also launched a discussion on C Browser Forum Network Security Working Group to discuss the weakness in web PKI. Please feel free to join us discussion if you are interested in these issues. So to sum up, we observed that HTTP2 and HTTP3 SCN-based origin is more permissive than browser URI-based origin. Based on this finding, we proposed 2 new cross-origin web attacks, CrossPUSH and CrossSXG. These attacks enable off-path attackers to launch practical web attacks with shared certificate. We also demonstrated how to leverage the weakness in web PKI to facilitate our attacks. We present how to leverage the misalignment between domain owner and the certificate owner to create attack condition, for example, by domain reselling. And we introduce how can validation reuse extend certificate lifetime, thus extend attack duration. Also, we revealed that although you control the domain, you may not be able to easily revoke a certificate that contains your domain names. This enables attackers to bypass some countermeasures like revoking the unauthorized certificate. And that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening. And I will now take questions from the audience.